We usually think about the four skills in language as two pairs of complements, which are traditionally and somewhat deceptively called receptive and productive. We have reading and writing because you read written material, and we have listening and speaking because you listen to spoken language. Now, of course, it is true that if you want to improve your speaking skills, then focusing on listening is an excellent way of moving forward, because you need listening intensively to listen to how the sounds are produced and how they're put together. And you also need listening extensively so that you can become familiar with the more general aspects and patterns of spoken language. Now, having said that, language as a whole is interconnected and all the skills work together. So what we're going to do in this video is focus on reading to improve speaking. And what that implies is that we need to know how to read properly. So that's what we're going to do. And if you haven't done so yet, click subscribe and invite the bell to be notified every time I upload new content, which will be relevant to you if you are trying to improve your English skills and integrate them into your everyday life. If we haven't met yet, my name is Tanya Meyer, and I'm an English as a foreign language teacher to adults. And in this video, I'll be sharing some of the techniques you can apply to your reading in order to improve your speaking skills. Let's take a look. Okay, so what I've done is I've chosen a little paragraph that we're going to look at, and it consists of 3 sentences. So we're going to look at these 3 sentences together. We're going to break them down, like to the smallest detail, and this is going to help you to put English together in a more kind of natural way. We're going to practice this, and then by the end of the video, you'll be able to do the same. And the more you practice with small pieces of text, the more you practice in this way, the more you'll do it automatically. And so reading to improve speaking will become much more natural for you. Okay, so here is the text that we're going to be looking at. And as you can see, there's something very important that's missing here. What is it? Of course, it's punctuation. If you look at a text and you just see a stream of words like this, then it's difficult to make sense of what the text is trying to say. So if we're just looking at a text that's giving us some information online, or it's just something that's supposed to be very simple, if we read it like this, it's going to take a lot of effort to make sense of it. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to punctuate the text. Okay, so here's the punctuated version of the 3 sentences, our little paragraph. Even before starting to read, we can distinguish capital letters and full stops, which the Americans call periods. And in addition to these punctuation marks, we have in English, as in other languages, commas, hyphens, exclamation, question, and quotation marks, and so on, all of which produce valuable information to help us understand what is being said and how we should read. Remember that understanding is key. If you don't understand what you're reading, you might as well not read at all. Okay, so let's start with our proper reading now. We're going to zoom in on that first sentence. And if we look at it just as a collection of words, then this one word is probably the one that stands out. as a word that we might not understand the meaning of. And as I've just said, meaning is everything. So what we're going to try and do, instead of looking for the word in the dictionary, we're going to try and use our powers of inference and see if we can use context and the word itself to decipher the meaning. So can you just, if you don't know the meaning of the word, can you find a word within this word that you recognize? Probably, right? You can probably distinguish the word earth, which we normally use as a noun, meaning the planet on which we live, or that uppermost layer on the earth where plants and trees grow. So that's the meaning as a noun, but here the word appears with an ed ending. And as we know, regular verbs in the past simple and the past participle end in ed, and also some adjectives, but have, unearthed here, indicates that the present perfect is being used. And so let's think about to earth as a verb. If earth is the layer of soil on the planet, what can to earth mean? Well, it probably means to cover. Yes, to cover with earth. And so if you earth something, you put it in the earth. But this word has the prefix un, which usually tells us that we're talking about the opposite. So if to earth is to cover, then to unearth is the opposite, to uncover or to discover something new. So now the meaning of all the words is clear, and we're going to move on to the question of stress. Remember that English is not a phonemic language. By phonemic, we mean that there is no difference between the written and the spoken form. That is, that you pronounce each word according to the way it is spelt. But English is not like that. English is a language of rhythm and stress. If you're a student of mine, you've heard me say this a million times. English is a language of rhythm and stress, which is quite different from phonemic languages like Spanish, Korean, and Arabic, where the pronunciation does not change between the written and the spoken form. But stress timing languages like English and German and Dutch and Russian and many others are strongly related to contractions and vowel reduction processes. So when it comes to English, we need to know what English sounds like. That's why listening is so important. But we also need to know what we're trying to say, because what will always be what is stressed in English. And what kind of words transmit the what? Well, nouns, verbs, and sometimes adjectives. Can you identify these types of words easily? So let's take a look at that first sentence again and see if we can understand what it says by selecting the information words. Marine biologists have unearthed a spectacular, there's your adjective, coral reef off the coast of Tahiti in the South Pacific. Okay, so there are our information words. But that's quite a long sentence, isn't it? If we read out loud without pausing and there are no commas to help us, we'll be out of breath before we get to the second sentence. So let's look again and identify smaller units of meaning within our long sentence. Marine biologists have unearthed, have discovered a spectacular coral reef, that is what they have discovered, off the coast of Tahiti in the South Pacific. right? So now we're starting to put language together in such a way that meaning is joined to the speaking. Now let's take a look at some of the elements of spoken language, even though this is written language. Let's look at some of the elements of spoken language so that we can produce this sentence. In other words, let's look at the features of connected speech, which I've already made a video on, and I'll leave it here on a card for you to take a look at later. But here we have an example of catenation or linking. And this happens when a word ends in a consonant sound and the next word starts with a vowel sound. So when that happens, as long as the two words form part of the same unit of meaning, then we're going to produce them as if they were a single word. Have unearthed, have unearthed. V is a consonant, unearthed is a vowel sound, so that's going to sound as a single word, have unearthed. And then a spectacular coral reef, even though have unearthed and then a spectacular coral reef is originally part of another unit of meaning, but we can understand that what we're talking about is what they have unearthed. So they've unearthed a spectacular coral, not have unearthed a spectacular, so there's no we just pronounce as a single unit of sound. And then something else to note is that here we have one of our ed endings. Now, I have produced a video which explains in great detail how it is that we pronounce words that end in ed in English, because we don't pronounce them a single way. There are different ways of pronouncing words that end in ed, and the reason is that some sounds are voiced and some sounds are unvoiced, and then we need to take into account what follows the ed also. So in this case, we have a voiceless sound, which is f, which is followed by a vowel a. So we pronounce it t, unearthed, because t is also voiceless. Anyway, watch my video on ed endings to understand this a little bit better, but have unearthed a spectacular coral. Have unearthed a spectacular coral, not have unearthed or not have unearthed it, because then you're saying something else. So have unearthed a spectacular. That little section we're going to pronounce as a single word. Have unearthed a spectacular. Try it. Have unearthed a spectacular coral reef. Okay, so shall we put it all together? Here we go. Marine biologists have unearthed a spectacular coral reef off the coast of Tahiti in the South Pacific. Shall we try the next two sentences together? I know that it looks like, there's so much going on, but trust me, if you get into the habit of seeing written language in this way, and you take just a small section and decide to practice with it and produce spoken language, then your spoken English can really improve a lot, because you've been practicing with written texts and not things that you're thinking about as you produce, so this is like a little lab that you can create for yourself in order to practice speaking skills in a very artificial way if you want, but this is going to help you when you're in a more natural environment. So here are the next two sentences. And as before, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to identify what it says. We need to understand the sentence, and the best way of understanding it is by identifying the information words as we read and then identifying smaller units of meaning, okay, when the sentence is very long, when it's necessary. So here we have the 3-kilometer long reef lies at a depth of 30 meters. The scientists believe the array of corals and ocean vegetation contains previously undiscovered marine species. So let's go step by step so that we can produce this without getting ourselves into a jumble. Here are the information words. 3-kilometer long reef, lies is the verb, depth is a noun, 30 meters. Yes, information. Scientists believe array. What could that be in the context? Possibly some kind of arrangement. Yes, scientists believe the arrangement of corals and ocean vegetation contains previously undiscovered marine species. Now, this sounds like a robot. So if I read like this, it's difficult to attach meaning to these information words. So let's divide them up into smaller units of meaning. The 3-kilometer long reef lies at a depth of 30 meters. The scientists believe the array of corals and ocean vegetation contains previously undiscovered marine species. Okay, so now I understand what the sentence is saying. Is this resonating with you? Click the like button and comment below if these strategies are helpful to you in any way. How are they helpful? How will you implement them? What will you do with them? Okay, so the meaning might be mostly clear, but not entirely. Let's look at this definite article here. The, what does it refer to? It refers to the reef, right? And so 3-kilometer long is the adjective form of the reef is 3 kilometers long. We can say that also, and it wouldn't be wrong. We can say the reef is 3 kilometers long. But in this case, we have transformed is 3 kilometers long into a compound adjective. And when we do that, as you know, in English, adjectives are not pluralized ever. And so this is why we say a 3-kilometer long reef and not a 3 kilometers long reef. And we also hyphenate in order to show that this is a compound adjective. So even though 3 is plural, and we would use it in the plural when we're describing something. How long is it? Oh, it's 3 kilometers long. If we're going to make it into an adjective, then we say a 3-kilometer long reef. We also say it with age. For example, how old is your daughter? Oh, she's a 5-year-old girl. A 5-year-old girl, not a 5 years old, a 5-year-old girl. When we produce compound adjectives, they will be in the singular. $1 million deal, a $10 million deal, not a $10 millions. A $10 million deal. Okay. So 3-kilometer long is an adjective describing the reef. And then this other section, the array of corals and ocean vegetation, well, that is just another way of referring to the reef. They don't want to repeat the word reef, and so they just use a different way. This is a literary device. It's so that you don't read the same word over and over again. And if you need to write and you find yourself writing your subject over and over and over, then you might need my help. Okay, so let's put all of this together. We're going to stress the information words. We're going to divide the text into smaller units of meaning. We know what it all means now. And so here we go. The 3-kilometer long reef lies at a depth of 30 meters. The scientists believe the array of corals and ocean vegetation contains previously undiscovered marine species. Shall we look at an unmarked version of the 3 sentences that we've looked at? Look, honestly, when you're trying to do this, the more you practice with little bits of language, small pieces, the more you'll be able to do this all at once without even marking the text. So let's try it just for fun. Ready? Marine biologists have unearthed a spectacular coral reef off the coast of Tahiti in the South Pacific. The 3-kilometer reef lies at a depth of 30 meters. The scientists believe the array of corals and ocean vegetation contains previously undiscovered marine species. Hope this helps, but if you're struggling, stuck, or anxious when it comes to English, I would love to support you. In the description below, make sure that you download my free guide, which is a step-by-step guide. And if you'd like to join my program, then click on the overview link and take a look at what the program consists of, and then find a day and time that suits you to book a call, and a real human will respond. So remember to like this video if you found it helpful, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one. Bye for now.